Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, Sean did a wonderful job for about an hour and a quarter there. I'm going to be a lot shorter, you'll be glad to hear, just to take you up to a run up to lunch. We should have some slides, I think that's it. Okay, so it's just a quick presentation about our new online training course on supply chain finance. For a little bit of background, for people who don't know Coastline Solutions, we are a technology company. We're specialized really in online training and information resources. So things like online libraries, online resources to support people in terms of education. Michael started the day talking about how quickly things have changed over the last 10 years. But I think it's important to note one thing that has stayed constant has been the need for education and knowledge over all that time and trying to keep up to date with what's changing. Briefly, we've been working in this area since 1999, developing courses primarily in trade, international trade and international trade finance. We've customers in over 100 countries. We've delivered thousands of courses to thousands of organizations. That's just some background. In terms of the subject matters we deliver training in, we have courses in trade-based financial crime, so that's your anti-money laundering, terrorism, financing, all those things. Sustainability in trade and trade finance, environmental and social and governance issues. We have courses in all of the traditional products like letters of credit, guarantees, standbys. We cover Incoterms, the international trade terms from ex-works all the way to DDP, delivered duty paid. We've general training in export import, and what I'm talking about today is what we've worked on with SupplierPlus, which is a new course in supply chain finance. Let me go back just for a second. Sorry, when I talk about these, as I said, we're a technology company. We're not experts in any of these areas. What we do is we try to identify experts in the market and work with them. We're experts at getting the knowledge out of people's heads and then structuring it and developing it into courses and delivering it online. Okay, so that's in terms of the content. But in terms of getting things to the market, then we partner with the main international organizations. We've been working with the International Chamber of Commerce for over 20 years, with the EBRD for over 10 years. On the financial crime side and the traditional trade products, we worked with the London Institute for Banking and Finance, with the IIBLP in the US, and now with SupplierPlus on this one. This is what Sean spoke about earlier. We also, one of the things, the projects we worked on was the development of the GSCFF website. So we actually host and manage the GSCFF website. With our work with the EBRD, we've delivered courses in countries, I think as Ian said earlier, from Morocco to Mongolia, from Estonia down to Egypt. So in all of those countries, passing through Jordan and Georgia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, the whole range of EBRD countries. As a small company based in Dublin, it's difficult for us to get to all these markets. So we partner with people who can help us get introductions and get the presence in these kind of locations. So one of the things in our discussions with the EBRD, they asked us, have you developed or are you developing something in supply chain finance? So we discussed it with them. They introduced us to Uve in SupplierPlus, so we've worked together on this. I think we were introduced about a year ago.
More than a year ago.
More than a year. Yeah. Well, I think since the pandemic, when I say something was 3 months ago, I find out it was 6 months ago. If I say it's a year, it was a year and a half. So over a year ago, we've been working on this. It's going through the final tweaks now. It's going to be available during the course of June. Again, as a few people have said this morning, when you say supply chain finance, people mean different things. Because we worked on the GSCFF website, we were familiar with all of the different definitions and the standardization of the definitions between BAFTA, ITFA, FCI, EBA. So we developed our online supply chain finance course based on the GSCFF definitions. Okay, so we broke the three of them. There's about, I think, 11 different products in the GSCFF definitions, and they're broken down into 3 groupings. So you have receivables, purchase, advance payables, and loans. For each of these, the course looks at what are they, which buyers and sellers are involved in the various techniques, who's providing the financing under each technique, what security needs to be put in place, how do you mitigate risk, and more. We have a workflow that looks through the parties, the contracts, security, risk and risk mitigation for each of the actual techniques. So here, this is our menu for the various things. So we have introductory sections first of all, and then we get into the receivables purchase techniques, and that covers receivables discounting, forfeiting, factoring, payables financing. Then we move into advanced payables techniques, which covers corporate payment undertaking, dynamic discounting, bank payment undertaking, which is not the same as the bank payment obligation, the BPO, obviously. In loan techniques, then we have loan against receivables, distributor finance, loan against inventory, and pre-shipment finance. Okay, now I'm not doing a demonstration here. I'll just have a few screenshots to give you an idea. All of this, obviously, as e-learning, is voiceovers and animations. So we give a general introduction, but then what you see down the right-hand side for each one here, you can see up the top here, this is payables finance. So it was an introduction for payables finance. You can see on the left here, for example, we have the synonyms. So payables finance is what other people might refer to as approved payables finance, reverse factoring, confirming, supplier payments, trade payables management, buyer-led supply chain finance, supplier finance, vendor prepay. So what we've tried to do is take the GSCFF definitions, and part of that document shows all the different names for the same techniques. So try to just reference those. Then we give an overview. We give an idea of who the users of the various ones are. So down the right-hand side, you can see the various steps we go through. This is all for payables finance, but we do the same for each of the various products. So we move from the overview through to the workflow. This, I'd say, is probably covering the same things that Sean showed a few moments ago, where it shows the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of what happens in the actual technique. So that builds up an animation to explain that. We then move on to the various parties involved. So it says the buyer will act as the anchor party, the seller has the option to sell the receivables, gives the detail of that, and then it gives an idea of who are the typical users of each of the techniques. So a large corporate buyer for the payables financing, the large corporate buyer is always involved, large corporate seller is often involved, and the different people, SME seller, never involved. We then move on to the various contracts. So we look at the contracts. We have a service agreement between the provider, the finance provider, and the buyer, and a receivables purchase agreement between the seller and the finance provider. We look at the security, what security needs to be put in place, risks and mitigation. So what are the various risks involved with each technique, and how can we mitigate those risks? We cover the benefits for the buyer, benefits for the finance provider, and the benefits for the seller. And then at the end of each section, we have a small little test just to test your knowledge. So that's just to give an idea of the kind of workflow through the online training. And as I say, that same process is carried on for all 11 products. At the end of the course, you do an assessment. You get a certificate with your results. And we've just got approval on Friday for people who are involved in other certification programs like the LIBF CDCS or other certification programs. We got approval last Friday just for 12 professional development points for anybody who takes this. There's the pricing, it's $450 per trainee, but we have a pre-launch offer of $300, which is valid until the end of June. At the bottom is a link for people who are watching on screen. There's a link to the web page, but on the tables we've dropped some of these off, which will give you some information and some links to it there. Does that take us to lunch? I think that's a good enough overview of it.
Yes, I will just say on behalf of SupplierPlus why we really appreciated the idea when the BRD put us in touch and suggested that we do this is that as SupplierPlus, I mean, there's obviously the general visibility in it for us, which is great, and we were happy to contribute with our expertise and review of the materials from, let's say, a practitioner's perspective, but one of the things why it's strategically important for us is that if you look at Western European and developed markets, then people there more or less know what the product is. I mean, payables finance in particular, and I would also say that it's been around for a long time. The companies are large, so they have a compelling business case to go for it. So in a way, the market has taken care of itself. But in our region, as you elegantly put, from Estonia to Egypt and Morocco to Mongolia, markets are fractured, companies are small, CFOs and treasurers are perhaps not as sophisticated or educated when it comes to all the intricacies and nuances between the different instruments. So for us, it's simply important to make sure that information is available to our customers in an accessible form. We want to make sure that we share the terminology or the jargon, because again, supply chain finance, payables finance, and reverse factoring are used interchangeably. But actually, if you go to different markets and even different institutions in different markets, they use the same terminology referring to substantially different things. So this type of harmonization of the understanding is important. And last but not least, we're very much interested in making sure that the digital flavor to trade finance and supply chain finance is something that is accepted immediately, and people don't miss out on this thinking that, oh, we need to be stuck in paper-based ways. And that is exactly what we try to take care of, and what we're trying to push with partnering with you.
Okay, thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or we have lunch straight after and I can chat to people over that. I always bring my little notes with me because I always forget to say something, and I forgot to mention that we're giving 2 licenses, 2 courses today to participants, and they're going to be drawn at random from the people who are watching us online who submit questions. You'll be put in the draw, and there's 2 courses being offered.